This is your fortnightly instalment where I interview a trailblazing physiotherapist that has shaped the profession we are today. In celebrating their journey, knowledge and insights, you gain the opportunity to plan and guide your own professional journey. My name is Doug Carey and welcome to Physio+10. It's my pleasure today to welcome Paul Wright to Physio+10. And welcome to past listeners and also hopefully some new listeners that are interested in what Paul's been doing in his life beyond all the things that we know about Paul. So, Paul, if you could just start by giving us a bit of a background about what you did and where you grew up in your early schooling.
Mate, I was a country boy. I grew up in a place called Coonamble, which is about 100 miles north of Dubbo, northern New South Wales. 3,000 people in the town, and there wasn't much out there. There was the local high school, and people say, well, how did you like it out there? Well, there was certainly no physios out there, Doug. There was the odd doctor and the odd dentist, but I grew up in a small country town and liked it because you get the chance to be a bush kid. You played cricket in summer and football in winter, and it was the sporting capital of my life. And I could jump on my motorbike and take off from my back step out into the paddock, and I'd be gone in the bush for the day and come back. That was the kind of upbringing that I had in the country. So it was great. It was great way to grow up.
It's such a freedom to have that. I mean, I've got some horror stories like that too. I grew up in a town of about 50 people. The school was about 12, but I loved it. And I think for the freedom, like, bush hockey, played literally in the bush, football, navigating around Chewett and Carry trees, and just, anyway. All right. So siblings, are you the only kid, or you got a couple of others?
One brother, 2 years older than me. And he left pretty early, and so I was pretty much on my own. And then my parents separated, and so I ended up one of those kids I think I brought up myself. My dad was great. Dad and I were there, and Mum was up the road. But I was a very mature kid. Like I think I was 15, and I noticed I had problems with my teeth, a couple of like vampire teeth. And so I go to range to get my braces put on, and I go home to the arm and I said, Dad, I need a couple of grand for these braces. What are you talking about? Well, my teeth are a bit crooked, It wasn't driven by anyone else. I did it myself. And I still remember Doug being in the dentist chair as a 15-year-old, and they had to take, in those days, they took 4 teeth out to do this, and I'm in the chair with this dentist. And I was there on my own, and I still remember the pliers that grabbed onto the teeth as they reef out these 4 teeth out the back, and you can feel the blood running down your cheeks. And I limped back to my dad worked in the town, and I limped back into town, the blood running. You better get me home, Dad. I got a few problems. But all done. Just did it myself.
All done and dusted. Have you read any Rowan Dale books? That reminds you of his story about when he had his tonsils taken out. Literally. Exactly the same story. The guy said, open up your mouth, and he just hung the sickle down his throat and just did a big round circle and ripped out his tonsils. And that was done at about the age of 10 or 12. I remember reading that story in his book, autobiography, and going, wow, they were tough back in those days.
And funny though, because I had braces for 2 years. So I think when I was 17, my last year of high school, just before they came off, I was playing football, and I got hit really hard, and I would have lost my front tooth for sure. But the braces held them in place, and the dentist said, lucky I had the braces on. I had to have root canal, but the tooth stayed in place. So there you go. The modern day mouth guard. That's the Coonamble mouth guard version. Get braces on.
Were any of your family members in the health sphere? Like, were you the first?
There's no. I got interested. No, my mum was a nurse, actually. Mum was a nurse years and years ago before I came on the scene. She'd retired. I'd get out of it by then. But Dad worked in the local hardware shop, and he was an electrician. And he sort of guy can fix anything, Doug. My dad, he can fix stuff. And I'm hopeless. I'm just the worst handyman in the world. So because he would fix everything, and I just couldn't do anything. So that's how that. But in terms of health, no. But what does a young kid in Coonamble do who likes sport? My career aspiration was, well, I'm going to be a phys ed teacher, because that's what young kids that like sport do. And I had enough brains to get into uni. That was my out of Coonamble. My way out of Coonamble was to go to Newcastle Uni, CAE in those days, College of Advanced Education. and study the phys ed degree. So that was what I thought all kids that love sport did, because that's the only, I didn't know anything about physio, chiro, osteo, podiatry. I knew about phys ed because that's what I saw at Canamble, and that's what I chose to do initially.
So you went in, did phys ed, and you studied in Brisbane, or where did you actually study?
Newcastle. So I went to Newcastle College of Advanced Education. We used to laugh, Doug, because there was Newcastle TAFE, like, so, and people in Newcastle referred to TAFE people as quarter people. The Newcastle College of Advanced Education, we were half people, and if you went to Newcastle Uni, you were a full person. But we were at the CAE in those days, and I was a half person back in the CAE days. But I was at a and I liked it, like the phys ed course. I still laugh with. I still see the guys I went to uni with. It was a riot, Doug. Like there was a toga party every night. You know, country kids all get pushed into Newcastle and just have a blast. And the demand wasn't great. Like the morning course was cricket, and the afternoon was tennis. I think it was subjects. You were doing subjects, cricket and tennis. One of the subjects was pub sports. One of the guys did an elective on pub sports. So we'd go and do a whole seminar, a whole semester of snooker, cards, darts, like whatever, it's pub sports. This was a uni course. Anyway,
alcohol free or not alcohol free?
Oh no, that was alcohol. But I wasn't a big drinker. I get into weights pretty early, so I was into that. But it was just a fun 3 years. Like that was a riot. That was just great fun.
So why did you transition from such a good time into physio? Because obviously that was going to be very much a harder course.
It was. So I was in I think my final year of phys ed, and I remember I liked anatomy, physiology. So I liked those subjects because we did a bit of it at the phys ed course. So I liked that. At that stage, Doug, I didn't even know what a physio was. I'd never met one. So I'm at a party in Newcastle, and I come across this young lady who was talking about this profession called physio, and she'd gone to Sydney Uni to do it. And wow, so injuries, anatomy, physiology, that sounds pretty cool. And so I applied for Sydney Uni as a mature age student to be a physio because I liked the idea of it. But in hindsight, I look back on it, Doug, and I think a lot of it might have been because I didn't think I could work for myself as a PE teacher. I thought I was, and I think I had an underlying entrepreneurial streak then that I didn't really understand. But I knew if I became a teacher, I'd be working for the education department probably. And whilst I think I would have been great, I would have been. I liked the hours, and I liked teaching, and I think it would have been a good gig. The holidays, but I remember getting accepted into Sydney Uni. I got the acceptance paper, and I remember sitting on Newcastle Beach. Do I want to do this or not? Do I want to go and do 4 years at Sydney Uni, which country kid wasn't really stoked about going to Sydney? Or do I want to just put my feet up and have a great teaching career and, in Newcastle? The sliding doors moment, I said, yeah, I'll do it. And before you knew it, I was in Cumberland College at Sydney. And it was funny when I turned up my first day at Sydney, at Cumberland College in those days before they were amalgamated with Sydney Uni. This is out at Lidcombe. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's the Rookwood Cemetery is next door. Biggest cemetery in Sydney is next door to Cumberland College at Lidcombe. And I arrive on day one of physio school as a phys ed teacher, a mature age student. The library was full. There was no party going on. There was no welcome to everyone party. That everyone's heads down and bums are up. And I got pally pretty quickly with some other ex-phys ed guys because a lot of ex-phys eders do physio. You know the deal. We all graduate to that. And we were thinking, where's the toga party? Where's the fun, mate? And I had the toughest 4 years of my life. I reckon it was a real eye opener for me.
Just wind that back a bit. Given that it was such a sliding door moment for you, I can understand you saying that you had that entrepreneurial spirit that you didn't quite realize, but you sort of felt something was there. Was there anything else that sort of made you make the decision to go the hard road and not the easy road?
Um, well, people that know me know I like to challenge myself. So I push myself pretty hard in regardless of what I'm doing. So maybe that was part of it. I might have, my wife says I get bored pretty easily, and I get bored with most things pretty easily. I'm an entrepreneurial thinker. So what's next? What's next is always on my agenda, which is why and we'll talk about today, why I'm in my fourth career, essentially. But I think, and fundamentally, I don't think, I'm also not great at being told what to do. I'm just one of those people. I don't like being controlled. So the idea of working in a school where you got the headmaster, and I'd want to be headmaster pretty quick. And I don't know if I could have been. So, but that being said, I went down this path of physio, but not really understanding private practice. So I didn't really understand the business model I was going down. I wanted to be a physio because I thought that would be interesting. But it's interesting. I did it, and anyway.
No, I just wondered if there was. I can understand the entrepreneurial spirit because that speaks strongly to me as well. But I just wondered if there was something else that you could conceptualize as to why you decided to do it. And I also understand when you say you like to be your own boss and self-directed, because
I laugh with some people. It was about that time in teaching where they took the cane away. So when you couldn't cane the kids anymore, and I remember guys in my year saying, well, they've taken the whole fun out of the job, haven't they? That's the end of it. So no, I wasn't as wild as that, but with looking back on it, spending the next rest of your life controlling kids that weren't my own, maybe that wasn't suited to me anyway. I don't know. But
yeah.
Physio was where I ended up.
So coming back to physio in those undergraduate years, was there anything that really stood out for you developmentally on your side?
Oh, it was a flog, Doug. I wasn't naturally smart. I was I was a worker, but some of the kids, they're just smart. So I had to work really hard. You love this one. So because I'm always listening to things. So one of my plans was, I thought, well, I'm into this subliminal learning. So I read something about subliminal learning. So I decided what I'm going to do. I'm going to, for my summary notes for the upcoming exams, I'm going to record them into my recorder, the old tape player of those days. And then I'm going to play them when I go to sleep at night. I'm just going to turn them on and just play like hours and hours of tapes of all the stuff. And I remember and I told a few people about what I was doing. And for some reason, the next exam I did really well in. I don't know how, I must have fluked it, but I did really well in. And everyone's saying, what's the secret, Wrighty? What's this education program you're on? And I think I just got lucky with some of the questions, but these are the things I was playing with. But it just, for me, what stands out, a tough 3 years. Didn't really like Sydney, really. But I knew I had to do it to get where I wanted to go, and I just put my head down and did it.
So
in typical Paul Wright fashion.
Yeah. Jumping to the point where you graduate, was there anything special about it, like becoming a physio, getting your first paycheck? Like, what was it you remember on that graduation process?
I was always going to enjoy it much more when I was getting paid for it. So the student placements were pretty laborious, but I remember, and I took allocation. So I didn't really look for private practice jobs straight away. I took a year in the public hospital. And I liked it. Like, I liked being a physio on the wards. I liked getting around and being the physio and different things. But wasn't great money, but you're getting some money, finally getting paid. But I was doing pretty well. I had a sideline. I was lecturing in the fitness industry for most of my physio school. So I would go and do I'd run 3-day courses for personal trainers with the Australian Council for Health, Physical Education, Recreation, the old ACHPA, back in those days. So I'd go and do 3-day events in the bush or in Newcastle or somewhere, and I'd get paid pretty well for that. So I wasn't a struggling student financially, but so that got me through the physio degree anyway, plus a bit of casual teaching. But it was nice to get a consistent wage.
Now, is that your entrepreneur? Did you create that course, or was that provided by somebody?
No, that was some other guys doing. I was into because of my weight training background. I was into bodybuilding in those days. So a lot of people might know I was a comp bodybuilder for a while. So I had that on the back of a phys ed diploma, studying physiotherapy, and I was a pretty good speaker. So I end up lecturing for these other guys, and that I spent 10 years doing that, and it was a really good platform for me to get education and in speaking and in business and stuff. And I think the big thing that I learned out of that whole fitness industry gig was all the fitness conferences that I was presenting at, they always had really good business strands. So there was a whole division about business. So I'd go to these fitness conferences, and while some people are off doing the aerobics or anatomy or physiology or weight training, I was into the business. So I'd go all the business lectures, and I fortunately got a lot of my business education from those conferences in the early days, and really whet my appetite for the business world and marketing and sales, and which is probably where I developed my passion for it.
Yeah. How did your career develop in those first few years? You said you spent a year at a hospital. What happened after that? And were there sort of key decisions that you made, or you just fell into when you developed those first few years?
Well, key decision. Well, through the fitness industry, I met my now beautiful wife, Helen, who's been the love of my life for 30 years. And she worked at a gym in Sydney, Chatswood Fitness. She was the aerobics coordinator of Chatswood Fitness, and so I got to know them, and I'd train there and everything else. And the owner of you love this, the owner of the gym, he had little kids, so he'd leave his office at 3 o'clock every day to go and pick up the kids. That was his time. So I said to him, well, mate, I'm finishing up at the public hospital, and I was working part-time for another physio in Chatswood. Do you mind if I take over your office from 3 till 7 every night, and I'll see some patients out of there? Yeah, no worries. So 3 o'clock would come, he would leave the office. I'd go in there with my portable table. I'd roll out my table, plug in my ultrasound machine, and I was Paul Wright Physiotherapy. So that was kind of my first foray into private practice, was 3 till 7 Monday to Friday at the gym in the owner's office. And then they expanded. They then took over a larger premises, and he said to me, do you want your own room? Sure, I'll have my own room. And then that kind of started the whole thing rolling. That was Paul Wright Physiotherapy, which fell into my lap because of where I was. And I remember he said to my wife, she said, if things don't work out with Paul, would you still be okay with him being around the place? Because he's going to rent this room. So he was worried about her. 30 years later, we're still together. He's broken up with his wife, and we're doing okay. So anyway, that was where that ended up.
So the moral there is start low overheads and you're not too committed.
Yeah, well, I didn't. I think it was charged. I think I gave him a percentage. I think I gave him 10% of whatever I made, and I was charging $35 for a half-hour consult or something back then, and it was pretty bootstrap. But it cut my teeth. It got me a bit of a bit of a foot in the door, maybe that this could be a business.
So when did Paul J. Wright then change to, I guess, get active physiotherapy?
Yeah, so we then moved to that room, one room in that new space. It's only a small room, enough for one bed, at a little desk. Did that for maybe 12 months, and then there was a big staff room that he said, look, that's overused for them. Do you want to move into there? So I took it over, and it became a 3-room practice inside this gym called Chatswood Fitness on Eastern Valley Way in Chatswood. And we had a great time there. It really boomed into a practice. Good demographic, good equipment, knew the owner well. But then I don't know if you know this story. Then I think we had the biggest lesson I think I've ever learned in business. It was a Thursday from memory, Thursday, like 6 o'clock, phone rings. And I was at home at that time. And it was a mate of mine from the gym. He said, just to let you know, I don't know if you know this, but the owners of the gym haven't paid rent for 3 months. Just thought you might want to know. Okay, thanks for giving me the heads up. Rent was due next day, Doug. So I go in the next morning, and I got my rent check. In the days, a check. I got my rent check, and I'm giving it to the owner of the gym, who's a good mate of mine. I said, mate, here's your rent check. and I was seeing what he was going to do. Like I had the red chair, and he said, "Oh, he should just hold on to that, Wrighty. We've got a few things we've got to deal with." Okay, so I'm thinking this isn't good. And then it escalates quickly. The next half hour or so, there's talk the gym's closing. There's like it just went really from a full book, 3 rooms, pumping practice, good revenue, to being in all sorts of trouble very quickly. I cancel the patients on my list. I ring and organise a truck, get a truck, park it out the front of the gym, and I start moving everything from the practice into the truck. People are saying that's a bit extreme, Wrighty. There's another buyer that's going to take over the gym. They'll be starting it on Monday, so don't worry about it. I said, well, I'll tell you what, when it opens on Monday, I'll bring everything back and just start again. Okay. 5 o'clock that afternoon, closed the door on the truck, drove off with everything inside it. And I can tell you, Doug, I never again set foot inside that building. It closed, that business closed that day and never reopened as a gym again. Now, there's a business lesson for you. Pumping practice, doing it easy, and all of a sudden it's gone in 24 hours. Now,
just because
what's
it's
the
not
lesson?
your practice to control, isn't it?
It's not. I didn't have the lease. I was a subtenant of someone, and I was relying on them to pay the rent. So there's probably, if you talk about our biggest business lesson, that was one of them. So fortunately, the only good aspect, I had opened another practice. So I had opened a practice in DY a little bit before this all happened. So but it was also inside a fitness center. So I had a backup, but people weren't going to travel from Chatswood to DY. So we effectively lost 75% of our business straight away, but I still had somewhere to go. I still had a premise to work on, and that was a pretty tough period. That you live and learn.
I thought you were going to say it was the starting point of Wrighty's mobile physiotherapy from the back of the truck.
Yeah, well, everything was in the truck. There wasn't much room for a patient, but everything was in there.
But as a business lesson, that also speaks to me. Like we talked about how we maintain contact with our patients, in our sense, our business partners, and in social media, and having an email list. So this podcast has obviously got a bit of a business focus with you being the guest, but to me, that's why I think it's so important we develop our own email list as opposed to be reliant upon social media, because social media can change in a flash, or it can go under, or anything can happen. You have no recourse. But if you have your own email list, you've got it, and you can maintain.
You've got to own the database. You've got to own the mailing list. You've got to, you can't. What do they say? You can't take likes and followers to the bank. It's just you. Well, they say if you aren't paying for the product, you are the product.
Yeah,
and that's what social media lives on. And I like it. I play with it, and I'm involved in LinkedIn especially. But I know I don't own it. But I'm always make sure I'm downloading my connections from LinkedIn into my own platform of some description as often as possible, and getting them off social media.
Yeah.
But in those days, Doug, we weren't great. I wasn't that sharp. I'd already built the business, and I'd opened this other one, and my business skills weren't spectacular. I wasn't as as skilled as I needed to be, but that kind of kicked me up the bum. And I think we talk about turning points. When the Chatswood Clinic was open, there was a glass windows looked at over Eastern Valley Way, the road that goes behind our practice. And I was treating patients in that room, and I was doing what most guys do. I was starting early, finishing late. I'd see the sun come up over the horizon. I'd see the sun go down. That was kind of the deal from this window. And talk about turning points. There's a bus that kept going past this Eastern Valley Way, and I'm in this cubicle, but the bus keeps going past. And on the side of the bus, I'll never forget the words, "Why most small businesses fail and what to do about it," is written on the side of the bus. And this is happening. This bus is going past all the time. And I'm better now at the universe was trying to send that message. I wasn't good then. I'm thinking, well, that bloody bus, but I'm getting better now. That was the universe telling me a message. I rang the phone number on the side of the bus, which led me to a Michael Gerber seminar. And Michael Gerber, if you don't know, he wrote the E-Myth. the original business Bible of the entrepreneurial myth. I go to the seminar, read the book, I become an e-myth junkie. So I get obsessed by e-myth and the whole premise, if you haven't read the book, is we start out as, we are like therapists, but I'm a therapist that doesn't know how to run a business. And I've had this seizure. The entrepreneurial seizure is that, well, I can run that business that does the therapy. It's surely I can. But that's the myth. The myth is they're the same skill set. They're a totally different skill set. So I got into the e-myth, started systemizing the business, really learning the processes and procedures, and effectively removed myself from a clinical role. And I hardly saw patients again once I really got into it, because I knew my value was in the business and marketing and selling, not in the delivery of the treatment itself. That was how I evolved as a therapist or as an owner. Anyway, sliding doors again, the bus went past.
Yeah, well, that's interesting, because I was going to ask you the question, like, how did your worlds of business and physiotherapy collide? But really, there are a few touch points, aren't there? And then all of a sudden, that realization came to you, like, my skill set is better placed in the business, the management, the marketing, the strategic directions of a practice, as opposed to, you know, the work on a practice, not in a practice. And I think, and I'm quite happy to say I'm guilty of that. I definitely am not very good at working on the business rather than in the business, but that's just the way it is. I'm a bit of a...
We do that with our clients in our business mentoring now, Doug. There comes a point where it's not their best use of their time to see patients. It's just not. Now, you determine what that is. For me, one of the big turning points for me is probably when our children arrived, and I didn't want to be watching the sun come up and go down. Like I wanted to be home for the kids. So this whole e-myth, it kind of came at the right time for me to remove myself from the clinical work that I was doing and focus on the business, because I could do that anywhere and any time. So I could be home a lot. And we'd expanded by that stage. We ended up having 6 clinics, spread at 5 across Sydney and 1 in Newcastle. But Doug, I didn't go to them. I'd go around and pick up the money and the towels. That was kind of my job. Once a week, I'd drop in, and sometimes I didn't go at all, because that was the e-myth model, and it gave me the freedom of being at home with the kids, which became my passion, was my project of being there for my girls. So I got 4 daughters, which accounts for the grey hair, but that was how it all worked for me, and the business gave me the chance to do that.
So so in answer to the question, what did I do strategically, was to remove yourself from the hands-on stuff and do more. So what would you say is the hardest thing you then find when you're coaching other physio owners about adopting that we can do better in business by being better with the business? What do you find hard about that process?
I think by the time they get to us, by the time they get to Practiceology or to our programs, I think, Doug, they've already realised they've got a problem. They've already realised they're spending too much time at work, or the business isn't profitable, or they've had an issue and they haven't been able to get away, or they can't take a holiday without costing them a fortune. So I think by the time they get to us, they know they need help, because they haven't. Think about it. That was the whole e-myth principle. We didn't learn business at uni. I did 7.5 years of university, and I didn't do one lecture, editorial, seminar, anything to do with business or marketing. And yet we graduate, as I did, and I can run this business because I'm a physio. Well, that's a totally different skill set. So they come to us, I think, knowing they need help. They've got underlying, I call it the Cumberland curse, Doug. The Cumberland curse, because I went to Cumberland College. So I had the Cumberland curse because I inherited it from my uni. And you'll love this. The curse is the misguided belief that if you are technically excellent, if you're a technically brilliant therapist, you will have a great business and a great career. And one of the lessons that is hard, and speaking of an educator, it's hard to tell you guys this, but it's not the determining factor. The best marketers will have the best businesses. The best business people will have the best businesses, and they will find people to do the technical work.
Yeah. And you could almost say that's like the sporting analogy. You can be a great footy player, but it doesn't make you a good coach either.
Doesn't make you a great coach. It's a different skill set. But sometimes that's hard. The other thing that's hard when we work with our owners, getting them off the tools is sometimes hard because in their mind they've been brought up, and it's like the dentist philosophy, Doug, of if you're not drilling, you're not billing. That's the dentist philosophy, and we often have the same thing. If I'm not seeing patients, then I'm not making money, or I'm not profitable. So we've got a whole profit and loss analysis that we take our clients through to show them if they stop consulting, they can afford to do it, and this is what the benefit is, and they can make the same money or more money by not seeing patients as they can seeing patients. But that's hard to get through to some owners. But you got to show them creative ways to do that. Otherwise, they'll just want to see more patients, because that's the fallback for most owners, Doug. If someone's on holidays, I'll fill in. If someone's sick, I'll fill in. If we've got a patient needing to be seen, I'll stay back later. I'll do more work, and that'll make us more money. But there's a price to pay for that, and sometimes you don't realize that price until it's too late, and your life's gone.
Yeah. What would you say has been probably one of your most out on a limb decisions? I've heard a couple already. Is there another one that you sort of think, like another sliding door moment, you think, well, that was really a step out of my comfort zone, and the outcome was whatever?
I think everything I've done has been out of my comfort zone. But what Helen, my beautiful wife, still asks for this one. She keeps saying, why did you sell the clinics? So that's one of Helen's. Why did you sell businesses that were profitable and you weren't there? Why did you sell them? So that's probably out there decisions. In hindsight, probably didn't make much sense, but I was building this other parallel business, the online education and mentoring and other things, and that probably had more interest to me than running at bricks and mortar clinics. The offer came along, the money was right, it kind of fell into my lap. But out there, do I sell? I remember saying to Helen, "It'll be right, darling." I didn't have any clients. I had this other online business that was kind of just, it was going okay, but it wasn't doing what the physio clinics were doing. I said, no, it would be right. I'll make it work. And I remember looking at the bank balance, thinking, it should be okay. But my uncle said it to me once. You've just spent years and years at uni, and you're not even doing that work. What are you doing with yourself? You're not a physio anymore. You don't see patients. What are you doing? It's just a mindset shift. They don't really understand what I do.
The Cumberland curse.
That's the Cumberland curse, Doug. You've got it wherever you went to uni. You've got the same curse.
So putting your business aside, or that area of your expertise and your interest in your development of the business, is there another aspect of your life that you feel particularly passionate about?
Well, I'll get out there for you. Always deeply passionate about my family and my daughters, but that was only possible, Doug, because of how I ran the business. So my big passion is being my daughters. My youngest daughter now is 24. Okay, so and they've all grown up and flown the coop and everything else. But the relationship that I have with my 4 daughters now, I think, is directly because of the time I was able to spend with them when I had my businesses. That's not putting a guilt trip on you guys out there. That's my philosophy. My philosophy was the business's job is to serve me. Its job is to provide enough money so I can have the time to do whatever I want when I want. That's my definition of freedom. We do it in our practiceology program. We talk about the freedom score, Doug. And the freedom score is essentially how many hours per week do you physically need to be at your practice? Usually seeing patients. How many hours a week are you physically looking at your diary and having to be at somewhere at a certain time? And we see owners now when they're saying it's 40. I had a guy once that was nearly 75 hours. So, and they think, how can a guy like that run a practice when you've got staff and other things? So my freedom score at when I had my practices was actually 0. So I could look at my diary any week and there was nothing in it. So I could be at the swimming carnival, I could be wherever. My youngest daughter's primary school principal called me aside once and he said, "Paul, what do you do?" He said, and he says, "Are you a drug dealer? There's a word going around you're a drug dealer." So what, he said, "Because you've got a nice car, but you hear it everything. You're at every carnival, you're at the tuck shop, wherever you are, you're doing everything." I say, I own businesses. Oh, so, but that was, see, I didn't gauge my self-worth by being the physio. I didn't have to be the best physio in the world. I didn't even have to be the best business owner in the world. I just had to be the best dad in the world and the best husband in the world. And for that to be the case, I needed something that would give me the money to do it without me being gone a lot. So that, what I'm most proud about, the time I spent with my daughters and wife. I think that far outweighs anything I've ever done, business wise or anything else. That doesn't matter. It never matters.
Yeah,
Sorry, this is a business guy saying the money doesn't matter. But anyway.
Well, I think you've got to have a reason for everything. And you basically just encapsulated that by saying the reason I do what I do is to spend time with my family. So it doesn't then make sense to not spend time with my family to make more money.
I could have made more money. Like even now, I can lecturing and other things. We could have done the speaking circuit and done, but that meant I had to go away. I don't want to do that. And I think one of the problems that we have, and I think it's worthwhile mentioning, as a lesson to you guys as you come through your business or everything else. One rule I always live by: never put a monetary value on your family time. So never put a monetary value on your family time. Now that means, like, let's say it's on a Friday afternoon, I could see 10 patients and make a couple of grand. So that's a monetary value. But I could also go to my daughter's swimming carnival. Now, some people mistakenly compare those two things on a monetary value. So you're saying, oh, I can make 2 grand or I can go to the swimming carnival. It's just the most ridiculous analysis. So you never put a monetary value on that. You can always see more patients. You can always make more money. But with my daughters now 24 and above, there's no more carnivals. The swimming carnivals, unless I get them into swimming, there's no more carnivals. So that's, if I missed it, I missed it.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to miss it. So I didn't. So that's my, and I'm aware that's me, and that's what I did it for, but you might have your own reason. You might want to be the best therapist in the world or write the book or be esteemed or everything else. But I just want to be a good dad.
Yeah. For the budding health professional that is listening to this podcast, what would be your 3 key or business recommendations that you've come across that's important for them to consider? Okay.
Well, I'll see how I go. Let me throw one at you that's a bit left field. And we're a Physio+10 podcast. If I could have my time again, I probably wouldn't be a physio. So let me throw that one. Now you'll say why? Yeah, I'll just throw that one and let that bomb land for a second in the Physio+10 podcast. I'll tell you why. Or they say, well, what would you be instead? Well, I like health. So let's say I was still going to be a health professional. I'd probably be an optometrist, a podiatrist, or possibly a dentist. They would probably be my professions. And people say, well, why is that, Wrighty? They've got one thing in common. They have a product range. They have, like, the dentist sell, and if I was a dentist, I'd be heavily into orthodontics. I would be into some, because I want to package something. If I was a podiatrist, I'd be heavily into orthotics. If I was an optometrist, I know I've got glasses and frames and other things. One of the big problems of physiotherapy, as I see it, is we are too much based on trading time for dollars with a manual therapy hands-on approach. And that's great, but that's going to cap your income unless you get highly specialized in a certain thing and you can charge mega dollars for it, or you own the business. As a rank and file therapist on a 20-minute, 15-minute, half-hour book, relying on trading time for dollars, that's a problem with the physiotherapy model, as I see it in most practices. So what's the solution? Product range, packages, getting other therapists or personal trainers or assistants to do a lot of your program for you. So develop the program, but get other people to deliver the service. Otherwise, you're in the time for dollars aspect. There's one. That's probably got time for. That's the big one I thought of. The other one, value yourself. Be careful of working in any aspect of physiotherapy where someone else controls your fees. So be careful of vets affairs, be careful of insurance work, be careful of NDIS work where your fees are determined by someone else's profit and loss register. Because I want to be in an area where I control the fees. In practiceology, I control the price we charge. Be careful about someone else controlling your fees, because they'll then control your income, which isn't great. Third one, learn marketing. Learn sales, learn business. If you have any interest in going in and owning your own practice at any stage, you'll live and die by how well you know marketing and how well you know sales and business. And it's all the things we don't learn at university. So go to the business strand of every conference, read the business books, do whatever you can to learn business, because nothing happens in life until someone sells something. And we're selling our service all the time. So get good at selling, because that's really the determining factor of your value in the world.
Yeah, and I think it's worth, when we talk about this in our Strive and Thrive in Private Practice course too, that the word marketing is not a rude word. Like, you can look at it from a clinical perspective, in the sense that if you've got a skill to help a person, but they don't know you've got that skill and can help them, there's no point having the skill. And the glue between that and them knowing is the marketing. So marketing should just be seen as a means of communication that you can help somebody, and therefore it's essential, if you've got the skill, that you let people know about it. So yeah, I still think that marketing in physiotherapy often is seen as a rude word, and to me it's kind of like pointless, because there's no point having great skills if you don't let people know about it.
We did a whole program on this. We did a program with my good mate Steve Jensen. We did a whole program on sell without selling. That was our program, was how to sell without being thought of as a salesperson. And we even questioned, should we put the word sell in the title of the program? Because we thought, if to put sell in that automatically turns health professionals off. But it's not the case. Let me give you a definition, if it helps you at all. Selling is simply a transfer of enthusiasm. That's all selling is. Selling is a transfer of enthusiasm. So, Doug, you come to me with migraine problems, and I'm the migraine expert. I can help you. I have a passion for what I'm doing, and I can help you. I transfer my enthusiasm for my solution to you. That's all selling is. If you come to me with a problem I can't fix, and then I pretend I can fix it, then I'm a crook. But if I fundamentally believe I can help you, I have a moral obligation to make sure you come in, join my program, attend all the sessions, and I do whatever I have to do to get you to do that, because I believe it's in the best interests of you. And I've done lots of work on this. I interviewed a guy once, a clinical psychologist. He talked about the power of the words you use, and not manipulating people, but how to control what people think and do. And I said to him in this interview, I said, "Mate, aren't you controlling people aren't you manipulating people by using this strategy?" And he said to me the most powerful thing ever. He said, "Paul, it's only manipulation if it's in your best interest and not theirs." So it's only manipulation if it's in your best interest, not theirs. Which means if I think I can help you, I should be using the words, the scripts, whatever I can do to get you into my diary so that I can help you, to make you attend the consult, to pay whatever, so you don't cancel it. All these scripts and things that I use, because it's in your best interest to follow through with the program. Otherwise, I've done you a disservice. And too many health professionals leave it to the patient to decide. All of our work on action plans and rebookings and programs and other things. You come and see me for your migraine, I say, well, this is what you got, Doug. I do the treatment. Give us a call next week and we'll see how it's going. Like, that's just rubbish. That's the nightmare. And you wonder why the person cancels, doesn't get results, because you left the decision to them. That's just not how it's done. If I believe I can help you, this is how many sessions you need. Let's book them in now so they don't get full and you miss out on the treatment. I believe I can help you. This is what's going to deliver that care. You've got to believe in your product. Anyway,
yeah.
Hope that helps.
Well, there's one other aspect too, I think, with the marketing side of it that again, talking to younger physios, is saying, look, you've got to think of yourself as a business within the business that you're working. And that means basically that if you are successful in generating a greater client list, when you sit down with your practice principal and you ask for a pay rise, then they're going to give it to you because you have demonstrated to them that you can build their business by building your business. So it's in your interest to be good at marketing, sales, communication, all these soft skills, because eventually that means you're going to be a better professional because you help more people. Hey, Paul, if
everyone's working for themselves, everyone's working for themselves. You're building your own CV list. And I had a guy come to me at a seminar once, and he said, I was talking about all these systems and scripts and other things. He said, Paul, why should I bust myself when I'm working for this other guy? What's in it for me? I said, well, you have visions of opening your own practice. Oh, yeah. Well, doesn't it make sense to fine tune, practice these skills and get them right on his time, so that when you start on your own, you've got these skills up your sleeve? Oh, yeah. So just you got to think bigger than that. So anyway.
What sort of 3 things stand out for you in your professional life? What are the big things?
You love these 3-thing questions.
Well,
3 things that stand out,
but it's going to be harder. Having a lovely family and a lovely wife. I've got that one. That's really top notch.
Yeah. Okay. Being able to get Active Physio into the business that it was without me being there. A lot of people said he couldn't do it. And I love that when people say that to me. You got to be there all the time. No, you don't. But you've got to have good systems if you're going to be a distant owner. You've got to have. So one of the things I'm most proud of is that building that business and then being able to sell it. Because I like the fact I completed the business cycle, so I like that. I've really enjoyed building the different platforms, the different membership programs. And I think like 1 Minute Practice or Profit Club, which I said to you before, was now 11 years old when we do this recording. Like programs that have stood the test of time and are still around. And I like to think, maybe thirdly, that I've hopefully made a difference to our profession in terms of our sales skills, or our ability to impact more people, and maybe for the owners in our program, for them to also be able to have time with their family and friends, and the business not kill them, because it can be a tough gig, allied health. Like, it's not an easy business. And I like the fact, I think, that I've been able to help lots of owners run better businesses, sell their practices for great multiples. Like, that gives me a buzz, just watching how well they exit different things they do that achieve great things. I love being part of that decision. So I kind of like, that's kind of what I'm most enjoying these days, that seeing their progress and helping people get their lives back. Because when they come to us, sometimes they're pretty broken with their businesses. They're tired, they're overworked, and they just don't know what else to do.
And
well, 3, 4.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant, because that also speaks to the longevity of our profession. Like, if people go into the profession, private practice, and they enjoy it, they stay in there. There's a ripple effect. The people that come through after them are much more enjoyable because they've got a good work-life balance. And so I think, that has a huge effect on the whole profession, because they're doing things much more enjoyably.
Can I throw one thing at you? I know, again, we're on the Physio 10. I've already told you not to be a physio. So that's, or you can be a physio, but have certain things going for you. I wish I'd known this. There are 2 key drivers of any successful business. One of them is available market. So you've got to have enough demand for the service you want to provide. So enough available market is number 1. And you also must have enough available labor. So available market and available labor. I've pushed this barrier for 20 years. If you open a practice, let's say you're a health professional and you want to open a practice, maybe like you have, in regional somewhere in the middle of nowhere. Now, there might be a lot of people that need the service. So you've got the available market nailed, but a lot of people open the practice and then a couple of years down the track realize, gee, it's hard getting staff to the country. So, but you should have known that when you opened the practice, because the 2 things maybe weren't available market, available labor. Why do McDonald's do so well? Because the people want the food, there's enough market, and they can get 15-year-old kids out of school to do it, available labor. There's a good business model. Look at businesses where there's not much available labor around. That's a tougher business model. So look at your allied health. And that being said, Doug, I never opened or never went into physiotherapy thinking, gee, there's demand for that service. I'll be a physio because I've always been in demand. Didn't think for a second I wanted to be a physio. And I didn't think for a second, is there enough physios around to staff these practices for me? Didn't even think about it. If I could have my time again, go back and look at available market, available labor. Are those two things available and readily available? And will they be available for a long time? Otherwise, you may come unstuck with labor shortages, as we've seen recently in allied health. Anyhow, there's a business philosophy lesson for you.
So where does Wrighty see himself going in the next few years?
Oh, Wrighty's, what's Wrighty now? Wrighty's, I love the third person. I'm now, what am I, 57? I always told my beautiful wife I'll probably retire at 80, but she's worried about me being around the house. Sorry, at 60. She's worried that I'll be around the house after that and being away. So I'll do this for a couple more years. Hopefully leave a legacy that will continue on. My family may take it over. I'm gonna do something with it. I know at 60, I'll probably fade into insignificance, and people say, who was that bloke that used to talk about business? I might fade into nobodyism pretty quickly. Who knows? Caravan around Australia. Just I don't bust myself much now. I work. I'd actually do more work now than I did when I had the practices, but that's because the kids have grown up and it fills my day in. Do you have
any specific thoughts about where you'd like to see the profession of physio going, even though you're recommending people don't become physios?
No, I'm not saying don't start putting words in my mouth. So I'm not saying don't become it, but become it knowing you need to do more than just hands-on trading time for dollars.
Yep.
I'd like to see us become more the coordinator of a lot of this. So I'd like to see us coordinating the rehab programs with your team doing it, like become more, impact more people, not just doing one-on-one. So having a team of 20 personal trainers that you oversee that then provide services to lots of people. Being better with our tech, like using diagnostics and other techniques. So stand out. Don't just rely on your hands. It's too intangible. I even hear therapists now, Doug, that say to patients, "Oh, you come in, I'll give you a bit of a massage." Like, that must drive you crazy as well. But you've spent years at university and you're a 20-year veteran and you're going to give them a bit of a massage. For God's sake, like there's people that can do that with a 2-day course. Like but to undersell their profession. So get better at the tech, get better at the leveraging your time, and being an educator. Like a lot of our value as therapists, I think is the impact we can make with our knowledge and information, which is what I've kind of done in the business sphere. But a lot of the tech people can have a lot to share with the general public about, you know, whether it's pelvic floor or hand therapy or whatever is out there that they can help more people with. That's kind of what I'd like to see us do. Don't just trade on time for dollars using your hands. I think that's a race to the bottom for me.
Yeah, well, Paul, thank you so much for sharing. I mean, there's so many gems or pearls or nuggets of wisdom that you put together, not only from your own personal experience, which is extensive, but also with working with other practice owners, either taking them from the bottom of their cycle to the top, or just guiding them through, because it is an area that's fraught with disappointment, I guess. If you don't get it right, you can become quite despondent about yourself and also your profession, and that overflows into a lot of other areas of personal life. So thank you so much for sharing all those things on Physio+10. I'm sure people got a bunch of ideas from that, and we'll put down in the show notes some stuff about practiceology, because I think that's really what people could go to if they were having some issues as an owner, or if they wanted to develop their business skills. Would you recommend that's something they look at?
Yeah, we'll just head over to mypracticeology.com. That's our main page at the moment. So mypracticeology.com. You can get there's a free practice survey, but also get a copy of, you get a free PDF copy of my book, How to Run a 1-Minute Practice, which lays out some of our foundational principles. A lot of resources there, or set me up on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my social platform, not big on the others, but I don't mind LinkedIn. Paul Wright, Newcastle, hit me up on LinkedIn, but head over to My Practiceology. We're always doing webinars and other things. There's plenty of free resources on those pages. So
Great.
Certainly you're not alone. A lot of people have done this before, but we don't learn it at university. We don't learn the business, marketing and sales, and that's sometimes where we become unstuck. So I hope today was useful, Doug. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much, Paul. Much appreciated. Bye for now. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Physio+10, in which I trust you gained some valuable insights. It'd be awesome if you could leave your 2 cents worth as a review or rating of this podcast, and I look forward to sharing the story of another trailblazing physiotherapist with you in 2 weeks' time. Stay safe. Bye for now.